our objectives today are basically to discuss the steps in evaluating a site from both the sponsor and site perspectives, as I mentioned a bit earlier, and also to identify key questions to ask during a feasibility assessment and site visit, and then exploring how a site may become preferred by sponsors by implementing best practices. So we're going to look at some ways that maybe the sponsor can also help sites develop, because if you have a site and you've used them, if they're good, you want to come back to them. If you have a newer site, perhaps if you spend a little more resource in terms of developing them, they may turn into some, very excellent sites for you. So we're going to take a look at some of those things today. I'm going to skip over the first polling questions because we've kind of covered that right now in terms of where you do work. In terms of your responsibility for site selection, are you directly responsible, or do you have that as shared responsibility, or do you not have responsibility for that site selection?
We're directly responsible.
You're directly responsible. Okay, so it's not shared with another CRO or anybody else. It's you pick the sites. Perfect. Okay. So let's take a look. On this slide, we have the goals of site selection, and I've delineated this with the sponsor goals and the site goals. So sponsor goals, as you well know, what are sponsors interested in? We're interested in quality and timely data, meeting your enrollment, and coming in within budget. The site goals, they want an operational protocol, something that's possible to do. And more often than not, those protocols are developed, and sometimes there isn't that feasibility check outside of pharma to go to a site or to go to an investigator and kind of do a little pulse check in terms of, is this really, a doable kind of protocol, whether it's the logistics involved or whether it's standard of practice or what have you. So is it operational? That's where a site is coming from. Novel treatment and scientific interest. Sometimes, the money, although adequate budget is important, it may not be as important as having a novel treatment for their patients, or that they're really interested scientifically in the device or product being studied. So those are some of the motivating goals. And then support from the sponsor. They're looking to have some support from the sponsor, whether it be for advertising or equipment or training or what have you. So this is what they're looking for, and this is what maybe a sponsor could offer a site as an enticement for a really good site to get on board. So what are some of the challenges? As you well know, there's that global distribution of sites and subjects. So if you're doing a multi-center, multinational trial, you really have to take a look across the globe. Where do you have your footprint? What will a budget allow? What are your resources? And the startup times by country. Some countries will take much longer than other countries. It's always amazing to me that when I did work in pharma, that the big push was to have the first patient in by a certain date. Well, that first patient in really is not that important. It's when you have your last patient in, because that's when the clock is really going to stop in terms of the end of your study. So I'd see people scurrying around to get that first patient up in whatever country, wherever, and to me that deadline. But the bottom line really is, as you probably well know, is when that last patient enters, and that you have fulfilled your enrollment. So that's another thing that sponsors are challenged with. And then regulatory requirements. Again, various countries have various regulation. So we have our ICH, but then we have individual regulatory bodies that we also have to be concerned with. The clinical trial planning, investigator selection, that is one of the most important pieces of this. So we want to look at historical performance versus pretrial visit feasibility. So you do have probably feasibility questionnaires, and we will address that a little bit later, or you do have some sort of method by which you screen your prospective investigator sites. But you also want to take a look at the historical performance. How do we find this historical performance? You're going to first, of course, ask the site if they've done a particular trial in this area, if they've had any audits or inspections, and if they've had any findings, what they've done about it. But you're also should also rely on tribal knowledge. Monitors that have been out there in the field have worked for other companies. They've worked with other sites, and they may have worked with a site that you're planning to use. So you may want to tap into that resource as well. There are databases. You may have your own database as well, but you want to have a real finger on your pulse in terms of what the site has actually done historically. So the startup time cycle is the other thing we want to look at. Regulatory and contracts. Now, Amanda, I think you mentioned you were starting to dabble in contracts. So you know probably how long this can take. Going back and forth, you have attorneys on your side, and the sites have attorneys on their side, going back and forth with indemnification and also with, maybe publication rights too. That's another big thing, and budget. So with this whole regulatory and the IRB submission and contracts, how long is it really going to take to get all of your sites up and running? And then the cost outliers. You may have a site that's excellent, but okay, they're located in New York or they're located in California. Their costs are much higher than doing a study in Wichita. So you want to balance that. You have a set budget and you may have some cost outliers, but again, it may be worth your while to enter them into your investigator base because they may be high performers. So again, you want to be careful about how you're spending your money, but maybe that money would be worth it if they are proven performers. Okay, then you want to meet your study milestone timelines. So we mentioned about the first subject first visit, but the last subject last visit, of course, is the most important. And then you have your database lock and your regulatory submission. So meeting all those milestones that are set out ahead, and that's, again, one of those sponsor challenges. And the sites are not always so aware of all these other internal things that you need to kind of meet.